What's up? We're live, bro.
We are live. We are live.
We're also late because of you. I just want everybody to know that.
Okay. Look, man. You don't gotta. You always blame this guy, right? It's never self accountability. It's always somebody else. Okay. Welcome to the reflection. This very funny guy over here. His name is Aaron Schaefer, aka Beats. My name is John Lee, aka The Brains, and we are going to be launching into that face. What? You're going to come out swinging? We're going to come out swinging.
Listen here, man. I'm gonna use the race card here in a second, bro.
No, you just remember, what would Jesus do, Beats?
Fly away.
All right. Anyway, tonight we're really excited because what we're going to be talking about is defunding police. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Is it being interpreted correctly? Is it?
Why'd you even say that word? Defunding is not. I hate that word. That's such a stupid word.
You look, I didn't invent the terms, okay? All I do is commentate on them. Hi, Mimi. Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Tammy. So essentially, what we're going to be discussing tonight is basically whether or not this police reform, as it's been presented, hi, Claire, has been presented correctly or incorrectly. And we're also going to talk about whether or not we feel that police reform can be achieved. Hi, Michelle. With limited funding or less funding, or we need more funding for that. And that's how it goes on.
The bottom line is, bros, defunding is the wrong word to use. There's something that needs to happen. There needs to be some kind of legal reform. There's so many things that are happening, so many different things. And it's not even about
Debbie.
You know what I mean? At all. It's not about color. So the word defunding is the first thing that needs to be changed about the whole thing in the first place.
Okay, that's probably true. I can agree to that, but the term is what it is, right? And the reason that they're using defunding is, in my opinion, it's because they feel like, hey, Kevin, they feel like when we redid our budgets on a lot of these police budgets and everything else, and I'm not the best person explaining this process, but essentially what they felt is that the education departments got defunded. They feel like, because this is what happened in reality. What we see is when we spiked up some of these budgets in some of these areas, the community centers got defunded, the education got defunded, the counseling centers got defunded, the treatments got defunded. So I almost think it's in a way, it's kind of a retribution term, right? It's something that people are using because they're saying, hey, you defunded these other things to give you guys better equipment and get you more personnel. But at the same time, now we're saying we're going to defund you to bring back to those situations. And don't get me wrong, I have a hard time agreeing with any kind of term like that that's inflammatory, that makes me feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel it's kind of divisive in its very nature. So I have a really hard time agreeing with it.
We need to defund something else. You know what I mean? We're not gonna. It makes no sense to defund something that's good for the community, like community centers and stuff like that, and fund the police with it, because then
Hold up a second. Patrick, you'll have your chance to talk. Most of our guests don't get a chat and talk.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaron.
You can wait just a second. Jesus Christ, bro.
Hi, Nicole.
But what needs to happen is those fundings need to stay in place for the community, and there needs to be. I don't say defund the police. Give them a little bit more money and retrain them. You know what I mean? So that's what needs to happen.
He's trolling us. Guys,
he's everywhere.
Just because he owns the website we're broadcasting on, he thinks he owns everything, man. I'm telling you.
He's everywhere, man. YouTube, Facebook.
Right? At the bottom of our screen as the sponsor of the show.
Does it really?
Yeah, look, it's welcome. It's powered by Breathe America. They're the ones that provide the backing for the show. How do you not know this? You're co-owner of the show. Like, all right. So I don't disagree with that. But here's the deal. There's a limited amount of funding to go around, guys. And here's one of the issues that I have too. And it's something that I think one of our guests is going to talk about a little bit more. And it's this. A lot of the loose requirements that they have for like where you can live is another aspect you have to look at this funding movements, because a lot of these officers actually don't work in the jurisdiction that those taxpayers' dollars are actually going to that district to pay for that policing. And hence that money's going to the police departments rather than going to like community centers and treatment centers and things like that. And other city things too, right? Like sidewalks, whatever else. Now, do you feel that police should be from the place they police?
Absolutely. And the reason why I feel like they should be from the place where they come from is because they know about that area. They have roots in that community, which means that they're going to care about that community, which means that they're going to care about the people in that community. You know what I mean? Whether you're a criminal or not a criminal, they're still going to have something tied to that community. And at the same time, does every community, because you got to ask yourself this question too, does every community have the amount of people necessary to make that kind of move? Do they have the amount of people who want to be on a police force or are qualified to be on a police force? Because now you got to take into consideration situations like, I'm going to say it, gentrification. That's a thing. We're going to talk about that at some point. And believe it or not, I have some pretty interesting views on that. But you got to take into consideration that. You got to take into consideration, will that cause different neighborhoods to make different types of factions? Because that could be a thing at that point. There's a lot of different things that you got to talk about when you're talking about making that a thing. And then you really can't say like the same arguments that BLM has when you do something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Well, here, let's get this right off the bat. Okay. We've said this before. I used to be a open BLM supporter in the very beginning because I do believe in police reform. I do believe in legal reform, and I don't believe in comply or die policies. And, you know, it's not because I hate police. I love police. I think that they're a noble profession. And I think that as a noble profession, we should do our best to empower those that stick to the most moral and highest ground tenets of law and order that we can. And so I don't actually support what the BLM does, but I also want to point out there's a difference between your average person that's protesting for the BLM and what they think they're protesting for or what they think that they want, and what the corporate element to the BLM organization is, and also what the democratic political element of the organization is, because we're looking at three different tiers. When we look at these protesters that for the BLM, almost all of them are asking for their democratic leadership to step down. So what is the move there for Democrats? Well, to back them, right? To cater to them, to do whatever they can to avoid the fact that nobody's looking at the fact that these protesters actually want the Democrats out of office. Now, do they want the big, like, federal ones? No. So do I believe that BLM has, you know, like Patrick says, lost the path? Absolutely. Do I believe that these individuals that are standing out there that are trying to protest night after night after night and aren't burning shit are literally trying to destroy America and do it? No. It's because they've been told that there's a problem and they think that this is the way to fix it. And they also have different motives at this level than they do in the media level, than they do at the governmental level. And I think a lot of these governmental people that are backing these movements are backpedaling because they're realizing, I mean, conservatives, I'll ask you right now, I know there's some conservatives on here. Conservatives You know about the crime bills that Democrats have passed in these major cities. You know how law and order people like Biden were and everything else. Okay. So don't you think it's feasible that not only did that cause the problems that these BLM supporters are angry about, but that's why they're calling for their mayors to step down. That's why they're protesting the city halls. That's why they're going to the governors, because maybe when it comes down to it, they're not all evil and they're not all the same group and they don't all want the same thing. You know?
You
Give me your perspective.
I'm really starting to be like a little on the fence about whether or not which way I'm going to vote. A lot of things that I hear about the Democrats don't sit well with me. You know what I mean? Like, and when you really think about it, and being in the situation that I feel personally a Democrat wants you to be in, the Democrat that wants you to be in it, I've been in that situation and I didn't like it. You know what I mean? And now I'm on the other side where I got, I'm making some scratch where I'm like, okay, I understand what some of the points are. You know what I mean? Because like, dang, like, I mean, you're never going to know it until you hit that different tax bracket and you look at your check and you're like, ah, like, and you hit that different tax bracket and then you're like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't take much to hit that different tax bracket. You make a certain amount
of capitalist pig.
You know what? No, that's not that is not even what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, I felt both punches. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, absolutely.
Right? And from the left.
I came from a blue collar family, man. So, my natural instinct is to be, what do they call them? The bootstraps people, right? Pull yourself up by your own opportunity. But you, my friend, you've lived in a bigger city. You've lived in an area that has had some sort of like, conditions that affected you socioeconomically, right? You've been in areas where, Now, let me ask you this. Do you feel you had the same opportunity there that you do here?
Not exactly, bro. Like, so like when I was up in Seattle and I was I guess you could say riding the wave of welfare. They're like
the wave of welfare.
I'm gonna be honest. I was riding the wave of welfare. You know what I mean? I had Section 8. You know what I'm saying? I had food stamps, I had Medicaid, and in part I did need it. You know what I mean? But after a while, I didn't need it. So like I felt what that was, and I didn't really like the position that I was in. You know what I'm saying? So it
took steps to get out of it.
Yeah, once you get out of it, you really don't want to go back to that. You know what I mean? It's not something, once you realize, and not a lot of people realize where they're at in that. You know what I mean? They don't realize that they're being held down, because like the retraining programs that they have in welfare are trash, dude. They're garbage. I've been through all of them.
So where do we get the funding for this, Beats?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. But that's the question that needs to be answered. Who funds that? And the top 1%, maybe?
Oh, so now you're just going to go straight for people's throats that have made millions of dollars in their own industry in a free enterprise.
Fine. Give a little. You
kidding me? All right. Before we get into that, we're going to go ahead and bring our first guest on, which everybody should know, Patrick Wickard, the founder of Breathe America. We're going to pull him on.
What's up, people? Peace.
How you doing, Patrick?
I'm good,
so
brother.
I saw you were, okay, flash the swag. Flash the swag. Get that up in there. If we want to promote the reflection, we just have to get a mirror and just hold it My brother. So I obviously. Oh man, does he got a lag, Beef?
A little bit. I'm gonna throw myself on mute.
Say something beautiful.
Something beautiful.
Wow, that's a lag.
That is a
all
lag.
right. You gonna hop out and hop back in real quick? All right, give him a second, folks.
That's probably a good idea. I can tell that last one I said touched you a little bit, didn't it, John?
Oh, don't even.
Yeah.
You're always going straight for the throat of the rich, and you got to stop that eat the rich
But
stuff.
see, here's the
Okay?
thing, bro.
America is about getting rich.
Look. Okay, so if I can sit here and say I felt what that tax bracket looks like. You know what I mean? I felt that. I know what that feels like. However, if I was super duper rich, I would give something back. So
sure, so would I. But I mean, do you want to just put your hands around their throat and force them? I mean, like,
no, I'm not gonna take everything they own or their firstborn kid. You can have your big ass mansion. I don't care. You can have all your
offered the firstborn kid. Who offered the? Okay, stop.
You're
Patrick?
telling me I'm coming for this throat, John. Sorry, Patrick.
4 minutes into the conversation, you've already thrown your firstborn kid into the mix, and like that seems extreme.
You started it.
Patrick, how's the lag, buddy?
I don't know. You tell me.
Perfect. All right.
Not better.
So Patrick, you obviously you were backstage for a lot of that. I can see your hands flailing and your face turned purple a couple times. So I know you got some strong feelings on that.
No. The whole who pays for it thing, like, just makes me think of this tax thing that we probably should talk about someday, because I have pretty strong opinions on taxes. But as far as
Boston Tea Party, both.
Well, America. As far as defunding the police, I agree that the term itself is ridiculous, but that's not actually what the term, like, although it is saying defund, that's not that they're wanting a reallocation of funds to different things. I personally feel like what they're wanting it reallocated to is dangerous, and they're talking like using a combination of citizens and other things to enforce police, what the police are doing now. So essentially, you're in some of these cities, they're even suggesting that you're going to use civilians to take a police officer's job, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. So let's get a less trained person in there. That makes a lot of sense. You think that's going to lead to a better outcome? No, it's going to lead to a worse outcome. So I'm a big proponent in teaching de-escalation tactics. I'm also a big proponent in the idea that states need to start mandating their police take, whether it's a specific course for policing, because like we see all like the First Amendment guys that go out and challenge police on laws that they're absolutely very well versed in, and some of those are really upsetting. But I think that I think a police officer should know that he can't ask for your ID. I'm sorry. Like, if you're in a state that you don't have a reason to ask for an ID, I think a police officer should know that. And some of these officers absolutely do not know this. So they should absolutely be forced to go to or through a schooling system that teaches them competency of the Constitution, of the state's local laws that they're going to be enforcing, and be allowed to go from there. Now, do I think they need to be from the same area? No. While I think that would be nice, that'd be in a perfect world, sure, that would work. But we don't live in a perfect world, and that's never going to happen. So,
well, then let me ask you this, Patrick. If that's the case, how do you feel about the fact that statistically we see 90% of the budget in a police department goes to payroll? That payroll is paying for someone's wages that does not pay taxes back into that system. So you don't think that there is a detach there if they're living out of that area and paying taxes for another district, that doesn't reflect the fact that they're taking something out of the community and they're not putting back. You see what I'm saying? Like, our taxpayers pay their payroll and then they pay their taxes to another city, to another
But
town,
what
whatever
about
else.
that? What about that officer's right to live where he wants to live, though? Then you got somebody else's rights into question there.
Well, we're not asking the officer himself to move.
Intelligent questions I've heard you ask.
We're not asking the officer to move where he's living. What
John,
we're asking is that we
John.
hire from an area. That's all. That's
So
not
now
impinging
you
anybody's
want
rights.
to- So now
Be
you
policed
want
by our own
to-
people? Yes.
So what you're saying is you're completely okay with a police department ran by a state to discriminate based on location? Because in my mind, discrimination is discrimination is discrimination.
No, I want people from a community to be policed by someone
Which
who
means
is hired
if there's
that has a
somebody
shared stake in that community.
If there's somebody that lives 2 towns over, you think that's inappropriate?
Depends on how their districts are set out for their departments. If their jurisdiction is
Yeah,
still in that area,
okay
sure.
So you're okay with a state agency discriminating about with hiring somebody? We have very strict laws on how people get hired. So you're okay with them discriminating against the candidate? Hold on. You're okay with them discriminating against a potential employee based solely on the address on their driver's license? I just want to be clear that that's what you're saying.
I'm just wondering, when we do this for the postal office, is that discrimination? Is when we say that you have to work within 2 hours of this project, that's discrimination? Like, what are we calling discrimination? Job requirements? Then I've been discriminated my whole life in every single job I've ever been in because they required me to have a high school diploma. That's discrimination. They required me to live in state. That's discrimination. They required me to have a driver's license. That's discrimination. They required me to go through a course. That's discrimination. No, it's not. It's hiring requirements.
There's a difference between hiring requirements and telling somebody that they cannot work here because you don't live here. And where I pay taxes is not my employer's business. I'm sorry. Like, I'm totally fine with police working.
When your employer is the United States citizens. When your employer is my tax dollars, it absolutely matters where that goes.
Okay, why though? Why do you think you get a say?
Because representation without taxation would be considered tyranny.
Why
don't I have a say?
How about the tax dollars don't pay for the police then? How about that?
Well, then who's going to pay for it?
You're going to get the funding for police. You want privatized police force? Have you ever seen RoboCop?
The government funds the military with a certain amount of money, fund the police. Same thing.
It's really simple. It's really simple. I've traveled for work many times. When I was in Oregon working, I paid Oregon state taxes. I pay Idaho state taxes. I got screwed no matter what I did. Everything I bought while I was over there, I paid tax. Well, Oregon doesn't have a sales tax, but you get my point. When I was in New Mexico, it was the same way. When I was in Arizona, it was the same way. When I was in California, it was the same way. Idaho always got their cut based on where I was living, and I was getting taxed on fuel and sin tax if I bought beer or whatever, and I was paying tax wherever I went, whatever I bought. Period. I was getting taxed, and I think forcing police officers to be from that area, first and foremost,
Idaho State
how long do
Police
they have to be there?
Idaho State Police requires that they have to be within a certain amount of distance to the interstate to be hired for ISP. Is that discrimination?
But that's for a certain job, though. That's
Idaho State Police. Yes.
But that makes sense, John, because that's for the interstate.
It does make sense, doesn't it? Because they're right there.
Right? But they don't care what part of the interstate you're hiring for, right?
Damn it, I hate when that happens.
Take you a second to see where he's trying to lead that one?
Yeah.
I don't care if the cops in my town of Meridian are living in Cuna. I don't care if they're living in Boise. I don't care if they're living in Mountain Home. I don't care where they live. Like, as long as they understand the Constitution, they understand my rights as a citizen. That's the bigger issue. That's the bigger issue. When they don't even understand my constitutional rights, when average American citizens have a better understanding of the Constitution than police officers who are there to enforce the laws of our area, that is a problem, people. Like, that is something they need to be taught better about. And I think that's
an important problem.
Yeah, I think that can be done.
More training is gonna be the only thing that solves that issue. Then that's the only thing that's gonna be solving that issue is more training. And how do you get more training? You get more money. And the problem now, where's the problem back to? Where's the scratch gonna come from?
And let me ask you this:
our pockets, or is it gonna come out of the government's pocket?
Let me ask you this: which would be cheaper?
Our pockets, Beats.
I know. See what I'm saying?
Which brings me back to the point. The reason that I brought this whole entire tangent up about living in the area that you actually police is because it is more cost effective. It's cheaper. We don't have to do nearly as much. We don't have to cover near as much transportation. They're right there. They're ready to go. You can cover shifts faster. It's an overall more efficient process. I understand your points, though. We shouldn't do this at the expense of any police force. Okay. And we should definitely not do it at the expense of any community safety. But if we're talking about funding and we're talking about where do we come up with the money for all of these things, then everything has to be a little bit more tailored with the idea of cost efficiency in mind, which is why it is important to look at every aspect of this and go, hey, why are we paying for the gas for 25 extra miles when we don't have to? Why are we paying for this? Why are we paying for that? Why are we paying for this? Because I think all three of you can agree.
Well, I see that all the time, and it really pisses me off. I'm driving down not Fred Meyer, but I'm driving down Fairview, and there is a totally out of place. It was like 8:30, so I know he probably just got off his shift 8 to 8, 12-hour shift. It was a Canyon County sheriff in the middle of Ada County. What are you doing over there? John's argument makes complete sense. That shouldn't be happening because that is our tax dollars paying for that fuel for that car.
Why are they allowed to take their vehicles home? Why not commute to work like the rest of us do?
You know what I think it is? Is because the police want to have a situational awareness everywhere. You know what I mean? That's why you see some cars that go home. Like there's some neighborhoods that you could tell where it's a cop neighborhood because for one, all the blue lights. Number two, you can see a couple of Ada County cop cars parked in the parking lot. And so my in-laws neighborhood is total cop town, bro. And I see cop cars parked in driveways all the time over there. They are Ada County, but still, why do you need to take them home? What's the situational awareness for?
I think it's an interesting question that should be brought up. I think, it's one thing if you have Toby put on there, I'm losing my company truck. It's one thing if you got a company truck and you're hauling materials and stuff like that.
That's different.
That's a taxpayer's vehicle. That cop car is paid for by us. It's our vehicle.
I'm biased. I'll say it. I'm biased against this whole situation. And here's why. I grew up in Horseshoe Bend, Idaho. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not quite a 1-horse town, but it's definitely not a 2-horse town. So like
1 3/4 maybe now.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in there. We fluctuated a little bit, Right. The river's like beautiful.
I passed a sign like
down. Everybody's been to Horseshoe Bend too, because they just went boom on Highway 55, and that was it. So here's the deal. We had a very similar situation. We had a sheriff for like 25 years, right? Same guy. He always had a couple of interchangeable deputies. And we actually had a really good policing in our town. We all believed that Mr. McConnell, his name was Sheriff Chuck McConnell. We all believed he was a fair sheriff, that he was very good about maintaining the law. He kept down on speeding and everything else. He was never a jerk. He helped out a lot in the community. We loved him. Okay. He finally retires. Right. And we get into this situation where the city can't hire anyone because they don't have enough to pay him the wage that would entice them to work there, because everybody had to drive out of their community. And we tried to hire a sheriff, and the sheriffs just kept falling through. So this is a situation in which, we can't have somebody from the community, okay? Because obviously we don't have the funding for it. We don't have enough people that are capable. So we ended up getting Boise County to be our county police, okay? And they would come down and they give me a moment. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I just had something come up.
In the middle of a story, and we're just supposed to pick it up from there.
And back to the weather, Patrick. It's a little hazy outside.
Meeting said something in here about police, or Debbie said something that police are on call 24/7. That's not true in my area. I don't know where you're at. That might be true there. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think that that's accurate everywhere. Maybe in some smaller towns it is.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Somebody just kicked in my door and decided to say a bunch of things. Yeah, let's not play with the functions, guest. So what I'm saying is we ended up getting county officers. These county officers lived 100 miles away, and they were put over our jurisdiction. It was very much a situation in which we really felt like we were being policed by outsiders, because in reality, they were over strict in a weird way, but they clamped down on things. They were apathetic to a lot of the community issues. Like on calls, we had a lot of issues with them. And so what it came down to was I grew kind of an understanding that if you don't invest those tax dollars into community members or people from your city, or at least people from your area of demographics, then you have a disconnect. And then when you pair that with the defunding, that's where that whole push comes from. But, you know, I understand that it's not necessarily always feasible. Like every little village in freaking America can't afford to put up 4 people from their community or have the candidates for that. But districts are pretty large, and county districts overlap a lot of the municipal and city forces. So remember, we don't really have any gaps in policing typically, because the county pretty much divides everything up evenly. And then the city and the municipal fill in each where they're needed. But, you know, maybe it's a pipe dream. Maybe wanting this to be a more streamlined, efficient process is a pipe dream. But it's definitely something that's on the community's mind.
The only thing that's going to fix it, John, is going to be retraining. So, I mean, it's not going to matter where you come from. I mean, as long as somebody's willing to do the job, you got to be willing to do the job right. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so I work for a solar company, all right? But I live in Boise, okay? Or Meridian, Idaho. But my area is Southern California. Okay, it's getting ready to be the whole state though, because your boy got a new job. Anyways, my area is my area, and I treat my people in my area the way that they are used to being treated. Because if I go in there like a wrecking ball, then it's not gonna work. You know what I mean? So if we retrain the police to understand, like, hey, you're going into uncharted waters, you need to make allies. And by making allies, you make allies with people in the community, whether you're from there or not. It's a part of your job, not a part of the fact that you've been from this community for 27 years, or you were born down the street and little Timmy broke his leg playing baseball on 4 corners on Apple Street. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to let the people know that are applying for this job that there's a certain and actually hire the people who are going to take that into consideration and take their job serious on both sides of the sword, on the soft side and the hard side. Whether you got to use lethal force or you got to use, I'm sorry, baby, I love you from Cat in the Hat. Y'all know that one? Dirty hoe.
What are you talking? Jesus, man. This is why I wanted to make a show with you, because you're insane.
It's Cat in the Hat. That movie is PG-13. I can make reference from Cat in the Hat. When I started from Will Ferrell.
Breathe, brother. It's okay. Nobody's attacking you.
I don't do that sometimes.
I don't either. Every breath I take is a word unsaid. So
I agree with that statement.
I thought you were going to start singing.
Every breath I take. All right, so we're going to take a minute here. We're going to maybe.
What are the people saying? I want to know what the people are saying.
Want to hear what the people are saying? Let's bring up some comments and talk to some of our audience, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's go straight up to here.
Oh, we got a dirty hoe comment. I think that's to you, Beats.
Dirty hoe comment. Let's refrain from reading those outside. All right. So I hear you, Beats, but often it helps the neighborhoods with known police. My mom lives in a small city, but not the greatest city, but her neighborhood has 3 cops and 4 firemen, and the crime in her neighborhood has been less. And I think that's due to the cops that bring their vehicles home. So what she's saying is it actually makes the neighborhood safer by having their vehicles home. Do you think that's a thing?
I see that. I get your point, but there is other ways to present that. There's the blue light movement. You see a blue light, you know a cop lives in that house. You know what I mean? There's that everybody knows about that movement. There's other ways to go about it. If you need that cop, that officer to be the situational awareness person, all right, so set him up at home. Give him an unmarked one. You know what I mean?
But that doesn't fix the problem.
Give him his vehicle or something. You know what I mean? Set him up with a radio. You know what I mean? Because that's all it takes is a radio, really, to stay in communication. An officer, whether you like it or not, whether they have their equipment in their car, they're gonna have a house full of everything because they're a cop. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they do. That's their profession. Have you ever heard of a computer programmer having a bunch of refrigerators in his house? Probably not. You see what I'm saying? He probably got a bunch of computer parts. Have you ever heard of a framer with plumbing tools? No, he's got stuff to build a house. You see what I'm saying? So the infrastructure is already there by having cops with homes. You know what I mean? So I don't see the necessity in bringing the cop car home. I see the benefit in the neighborhood by having the cop car in the driveway, but there's other ways to do that. That's my opinion.
Patrick?
I think a police car in the neighborhood is a great thing. Honestly, I think it absolutely does deter crime. And sure, you can do it with a blue light. You can do it a lot of different ways, but nothing's quite the same as the car itself with the sirens and everything sitting on there. I think it's probably the most effective way to, if that's your intent. I saw somebody else commented earlier about, they bring their cars home so that they can respond immediately to emergencies if they get called in or something like that. If like something really went down and they were close, maybe they get a call in or something. I'm not sure. But no, I don't actually have a problem with them taking the cars home. Because I do think it's a deterrent. I think it's a pretty strong deterrent. But when we're talking about the financial aspect of how we pay for all this stuff, we have to be willing to look at everything. Where's the cost? If we're talking about limited budgets, we already know, at least, we kind of all seem to be in agreement that like adding funds and adding training is the answer, right? So where are we going to get there? They've already got a budget. Are we going to, so how do we use that budget to our advantage? And this is ultimately going to be up to each and every individual community, every city council on how they do that and whether or not they want to adopt these policies, because the only other option is to nationalize a police force, which is really dangerous as far as I'm concerned.
That's not the only other option. All you have to do is nationalize the policy. The police can be independent of their own cities and states. However, that's going to be a 5-hour conversation because me and you have had that argument about 6 freaking times, and neither one of us is budged.
Nope.
And we both make
not
good
gonna
points.
do it.
No, not this time. Look, we're gonna pull on our next guest, Mike, real quick. We're gonna.
You didn't like me. I was
with
fishing
him.
for it, John.
You were. I could see you.
Before we put on Mike, you know what I just realized, John?
Nicole Dalrymple, we are not ignoring you. You are awesome. Do you have any comments that we can put up here? Because the only one I'm gonna right now. Let's see.
Nicole, we can totally see you.
For real, dude.
We see you. We see you.
What's up, Nicole? She's everywhere.
Oh, let's pull that one off.
No, I like that one. That one was great.
All right.
You. But wait, before we bring on Mike, John, you got to realize something. We are in a Patrick Wickard beard sandwich.
Beats. No. You never. No. Never
Okay,
should've gone
everybody
there.
say goodbye to Beats. I'm gonna pull him off the show now. All right.
I think Beats is trying. I think what Beats is trying to say is Beats wants to cuddle with me. Sorry, Beats.
No,
not gonna happen.
I didn't say
I know
that.
your wife. She's a wonderful
We all
lady.
live in the
You're not going
area.
down that
We
road.
all live in the area. This is totally plausible. I'm just saying, like, we can work this out. But let's do it after the show. We don't want to freak out our
Not a
audience.
sandwich.
You guys
Situation.
take-
So, Patrick, we're gonna pull you off. Beats, you're gonna
Please.
quiet down, or we're gonna pull you off, and then we're gonna bring you back on here in about 10-15 minutes, brother.
Put me in the corner. Put me in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the
Baby goes
corner.
to the corner. All right, we're gonna bring on Mike Wilkinson now. A lot of you guys know Mike Wilkinson from the page. Most people get his political alignment completely wrong because he's a centrist. I don't know. He's like forward center. It's odd. He ends up weighing in on things where I'm like, wait, are you a conservative? Wait, are you a liberal? Wait, are you pro this? And then sometimes he'll be weighing in on something and he'll be like, oh no, I don't actually believe that. I'm just explaining it to you. That's why I like Mike. That's why we're going to have him on tonight.
I just like Mike.
I just like Mike too. Everybody wants to be like Mike.
Mike.
What's up, buddies?
What's
Good
up?
round to you in the center, baby. So, have you caught any of this shenanigans that we have tonight, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been paying attention.
Well, we try to be a little more casual and laid back on things, and we fill in a lot of the time with cracks of jokes because we want to hide the fact that we have knowledge gaps. Right?
Nobody liked my sandwich comment, Mike. I thought it was great.
Would have worked better if you and Pat were on the ends. That way, the beard was the sandwich. You know.
I think maybe on his screen we are. I think maybe he's got a different arrangement because I thought about it. I'm like, are we an open face sandwich? Like,
so you didn't see me that way? That's why it didn't work?
Yeah, Pat was in the middle.
Yeah.
how is he the same? So, okay, I get it. We're the sandwich and he's our beard filling. Why are we still talking about this? Listen. All right. So, Mike, obviously we've been talking about the funding and the way this should be handled, the defunding, whether or not that's the applicable way, and really what it means, because now we see that, and I'm sure you're going to give us a perspective we don't have, because that's usually how it works when you show up. I'm starting to be confused on what defunding actually even means. Like, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, let's start with why they chose that term.
Perfect.
I really want to hear why they chose that term, because it really doesn't sit well, that word, with me at all.
Yeah, that's why they chose it. Because nobody seemed to mind that word when we were defunding schools. Nobody seemed to mind that word when we were defunding art programs and music programs and basically everything. People don't realize that half of the defunding movement is because little by little, the police forces in America have been pulling their funding, especially in big cities. They have been pulling their funding from everything else. Everything. In a lot of cities, like John mentioned earlier, 90% of the police, or 90% of the police force's budget, I don't know if you brought this exact fact up, but you got to what I'm getting to in a minute. 90% of their budget goes into payroll. 95 to 90% of those officers tend to not live in those communities. And the police budget is the biggest budget in the city. So in other words, the biggest budget in the city is getting pulled out of the city. Not only is it taking away from the other programs that tax money could be going into, but then all those paychecks that came, let's be honest, out of the schools are now funding schools in the suburbs instead of the inner cities. So our criminalities in the cities are going up because they don't have as much opportunity. They don't have the education. They don't have the social programs. They don't have any of the things that help prevent them turning their life to a life of crime. And we often ignore that.
Now, I will say this, brother, on what you just said, I feel that it does make people more prone to choose a life of crime, but I don't feel it forces that choice 100%.
It does.
Let's say it increases the probabilities.
I'll agree with that too.
Humans are opportunistic, right? If you can get food by not doing something dangerous, you will. If you can't easily get food, that dangerous option becomes more and more of an option that you would consider. That's how it is. That's what crime is usually.
So what are you saying? The funnel of the money where it's going the wrong direction is what you're saying, right? And that is essentially is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, it's been taken out of the communities from both ends. Both ends of the candle have been burning for years.
So then how do you refunnel it but still not infringe on somebody's rights to live where they want to live?
So here's the thing is I don't see that in the Constitution, first of all. Second of all, if we want to talk about infringing on rights, why is it that you need to be able to live outside of the community? Why is it that that's okay, but I know plenty of kids that can't go to the school district one too many blocks over. There's a whole bunch of things we're restricted to on where we live. I can't burn garbage because I live in town limits. There's a bunch of things we can and can't do because of where we live. And quite frankly, I think robbing a community blind of all of their fucking funding, not that that's the officers doing that. I should say this. I have a very good relationship with quite a few officers. I respect them a lot. I don't blame them for any of the problems of what's going on right now directly. In general, that's not on every cop. Most of it's on the administration or the politicians or the people or various other things, and they're just doing their jobs.
Sure.
Here's the thing is that the purpose of their jobs in a lot of ways have been hijacked. This is again a money thing. We increase the policing of inner cities. Ironically, every time that things like private prisons get another contract, when we see things become legal, when we get more rights or more ability to live life how we want to, like when Colorado legalized weed, do you know that the state got sued over not fulfilling their obligation to lock away enough people?
What?
So, yeah, the penal system is a whole nother problem, man.
So the penal system sued the state for the state being under contract.
The private prison system owned by rich fucks, excuse my language.
You were not the one I was worried about. What the heck, man?
Talk about that for a second. Because I get a talking to.
I'll get it later.
About my mouth.
But no, it's these already rich people that are trying to basically bleed the taxpayers in the country dry
Hallelujah.
using the law system against the law system to do it.
How could that be? How could that be okay? How could a state even contract with a private prison to have a quota?
Do you know that is the way that the world works right now? That's why we have such a high incarceration rate. Do you really think we have that many criminals?
Yeah, I learned something today.
No, we illegalized a plant. We illegalize walking down the street if you're black. I'm sorry, but like stop and frisks, all that type of shit, that needs to go. You know, a lot of this, here's one stat that we don't talk about often. Do you know how often people of color get charges like resisting arrest with no other charges?
I have gotten my ass whooped with handcuffs by a Nampa police officer for resisting arrest already in the car because I called him on his shit. Okay. He tried to tell me I can't swear in public while he's sitting here swearing in public. And he beat my ass for it because he looked like an idiot. So I agree with you. That needs to go. That's done. That's part of the reason why I dress like this today all the time, bro. Like that goes to show it doesn't matter that I'm black, doesn't matter that I look Mexican, doesn't matter that I talk white sometimes, doesn't matter about anything. If I look a certain way, I get pulled over. I've been pulled over for wearing a sweater in my car. It was cold. You know what I mean? I look suspicious. What makes me look suspicious? I got drug out of my car for another car that looked like mine being stolen.
And see,
caught my registration.
I think it's important to note that I think a lot of, there's definitely racism.
A lot, big time.
I personally think that a lot of what's considered racism is actually classism.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I've never seen him be Eskimo Toby. Oh,
yeah,
Toby.
Toby. I'm sorry, Mike. Johnson. Mike, I'm sorry.
Please go on, because I think what you're saying is pretty profound, and it's about.
Yeah, it's part of the divisiveness that the parties and the media play on us, right? Mm-hmm. Not everything is racist. A lot of it's classist. A lot of it's economic based. There is definitely some racist holdovers, and there are definitely some racist people, and there is that in the world. I'm not going to deny that. But a lot of what's considered racist is actually classist, and it's enforced on the lower classes and the people of low economic status, which a lot of people of minorities happen to be held in to those lower classes for a long time. So it feels the same. It feels like racism. But here's the thing, is that a lot of cops that'll mistreat people of color, unless they actually are racist, which that's down to each individual cop, but a lot of them will do it to the white trash redneck just the same.
I've seen it.
I'm white trash redneck. I've been there. Yep.
Do
you think that's why we reject it?
They view the lower classes as less than, as mutts, as a whole bunch of things that for some it may have to do with skin color. For a lot of them, it doesn't.
You realize the FBI is watching this shit like right now, and they're going, okay, so we got the guy that talks about how the American people are being subverted by both sides because of their violation of the Constitution. We have the guy who says they're being subverted by both sides because of the class warfare. We've got the guy that says they're being subverted by the evil plots behind the curtains. That's Patrick. We've got every angle of this covered. You have the most dangerous group out there. And then Beats is like, you all.
Well, this is
Equal
this is
opportunity.
the divide and conquer tactic, right? Like we have the left. I should say that not the whole left thinks everything is racist. Typically, what the left has been for, not the Democrats, but the actual left, because the people in the party are two different things.
Yeah.
Democrats don't represent the left. For all you people out there that think that they do, they are moderates that are pulling from the middle ground, ignoring the left on purpose, because basically the left wants to fight the overreach of capitalism, and they're all controlled by money. So they don't want that to go away.
Do you think that the left clings to the Democratic Party in these elections and stuff because they think they really have no other option?
I think it's not about not having any other option. I think just like for a lot of people, it's about voting for what they see as the lesser of two evils. You know, do we want to go for the people
Who
that
isn't voting that way?
You know what? That brings up something like, so I'm not gonna say who, but I have people trying to convince me on both sides who to vote for and why. Be it that be it that both sides have some very valid points. Don't try to sway me. You know what I mean? Because I want to decide for myself. And last year, I'm not gonna, I'll put it out there. I voted for somebody who I knew wasn't gonna win, because that was my lesser of whatever evil. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say who I'm going to vote for. I'm not ever going to tell anybody who I'm going to vote for, because I feel like if I do, I'm going to lose one side or the other. You know what I mean? And that's not fair to the people I love and care about. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't think that other people, whether they're going to vote for this person or that person, should say, hey, I'm going to go talk to my friend, or I'm going to go talk to my brother, or I'm going to go talk to this person or that person and say, you should vote for this person because of this. We need to do this. We need to do that. I honestly don't care what your agenda is. My agenda is my agenda of what I believe in, and I have the right to vote for who I want to vote for, regardless of what you think or what even I think. You know what I mean? If I vote for this person because of this and what they said in this situation means this to me, even though that could be something totally different to somebody else, that's my right to vote for that person. So
if I could, I'd like to finish my point, because I was getting to a duality there that we're fooled. The left is fooled into thinking that everything's racist, right? But not all of them are. A lot of them, that's the media portrayal that the right gets of the left. Meanwhile, a lot of them think that the left are all socialists, all Antifa, all hate America, all criminals that just want all the cops gone. None of that's true. Just like the left thinking that all the right are racist, or half the other things that they believe. It's all bullshit.
Or how about I'm a white supremacist because I own an AR-15?
Gun stuff in general. I think we need to know, that's an important point. It's not a lot of the actual left that want to take away your guns. That's Democrats. And that's one thing that they do to rile the right up. Half of them, I don't even think want to put in any of that policy. They just do it so that the right hates the left.
I agree. I 100% agree. What do you think, Beats?
I think labels are put on people on purpose for what you just said, Mike. Like you know, when John said he's a white supremacist because he owns an AR-15. I'm a gangbanger because I'm black and I got a gun. You know what I mean? Like if you would have seen how the police came to my house that Friday because I have a gun. If somebody said I'm violent. You know what I mean? You should have seen when they saw who I was when I walked out the door. One of them pulled their gun out of their holster for what? Because I'm brown. I'm a color. Bet me money. If Patrick, thanks for joining us, Patrick. If Patrick pulled up, to his door because somebody said, hey, there's kids with a gun here. How do you really think that would have went for Patrick?
A lot better than it went for
I
you.
can answer that.
He wouldn't have gotten told to whisper.
Them, I would have asked, do you have a warrant? They'd have said no. I just said, get off my property. It's really that simple.
Probably would have left.
They listened. I hope so. But ultimately, we'll never know. But the way you were treated that day was absolutely ridiculous. I've heard the story outside of a live, but that was absolutely ridiculous. And we all ought to hear that story and understand that there are differences. And that is unfortunate because that's not the way it's supposed to be. But I wanted to jump on and say something about what Mike had to say earlier and what John was referencing. This team, this combination of people, John and I have very different views. Mike and I have very different views. But the one thing we all agree on is we are deliberately being divided by lots of different ways. And we are literally falling for the oldest game in the book, divide and conquer. That is exactly the game that they're playing. And they use it on us in several different ways. And what's interesting is I started seeing it for entirely different reasons from Mike and John, but my reasons are just as valid as theirs. And this is why shows like this, where we have the opportunity to reflect on things and look at different issues and things like that are so important. This is why, channels or groups like Breathe America are so important, because we're literally exploring these things that divide us. Ultimately, the end goal for all of us is to bring our country back together so that we, the people, can run our country the way that it should be ran, because this is our country. We are the authorities. So, yeah, when John was joking about the FBI watching, I have no doubt that they are. And they're probably thinking, man, this is an interesting combination. How did these three people come together? Because, we're the biggest fear in the world, right? Three self-thinking Americans that all see it
You
differently.
don't understand. Okay, hold on a second, Mr. Racist. We got to acknowledge the fact that we have our Black Panther representative right here. It's Seahawk here.
Broken.
I'm not. First of all, don't call me a racist, bro.
I was telling Jeep the other day, racist is like the N-word for white people. You want to freak out from honkies? You want to freak out from honkies? Walk into a room and drop a hard R. And people just go,
all three of you. R's.
But this group, this show, all of us, everybody watching, everybody that participates in things like this, that put our political ideologies aside. Look, we have to do away with the labels, you guys. I am not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not even an independent. I'm an American. You're an American. We're all Americans. This is what has to happen. We have to come together. If we do not unify our nation, we are all going to get screwed in the end. That is what's most important. 100%, Lindsay, 100%.
One of my goals is there's this guy. I don't know if you guys heard of him, but he's been infiltrating the KKK for quite some time now. He's been doing it for a few years.
Daryl Davis,
and he's done a lot of good. One of my goals is to actually, I'm a people. You all know me, John, Patrick, Mike. You guys know me. I'm a people person. All I do is run my mouth. I want to talk to people. I want to hear the perspective of a neo-Nazi. I want to hear the perspective of somebody from the Aryan Nation. Somebody from the Proud Boys. Everyone. I don't care who it is. I ain't scared. I've been in way more situations that are scary that people would never even know about. You know what I mean? So I have a goal to bridge that gap, just like what you're saying. because once we're not divided, we're way stronger than they think we are. There's a lot more of us than there is them, Mr. FBI, CIA, DOD, all of it.
Can we not just deliberately tempt them to come and mess with us, please?
I did. Actually,
Yeah,
I poked the bear. Poke.
Didn't you kind of do it before he did?
Yeah. You started, John. I'm blaming you.
Look, man, all I did was look down. I saw FBI entered the chat. So I just started talking to him, okay? Listen, let me just say something. To the NSA and the Department of Homeland Security, this show is not possible, and neither are my beliefs without the support of viewers like you.
I just want to say that I liked my babysitters a whole lot better when they brought cool snacks like popcorn and candy.
Just gonna stare at us all night. Do something. Come on the show. I dare you to come over here and explain to me things.
I'll throw in this before you come at us. Just remember one thing: we've actually read the Constitution. Just saying. Saying. I actually know what it says. You might want to read that.
Oh, I've always said the best way to know.
It's part of your job,
right?
How
you want to know if your country, if your country has a good foundation. See if there's a legal document that allows you to shoot government if it does what you don't want it to do.
Look, I don't want to shoot anyone.
Just maybe there might be a piece of paper like that.
I don't want to shoot anybody in any situation, but I will say this. I do want to be left alone. I do want to be free, and I do want our country to run the way that it's supposed to run. And I'm really tired of watching us be so easily divided. Nicole, I love you.
Let me redeem myself. Thank you.
Hey, listen here, man. That is against the contract to self-promote on the show. We're gonna.
I'm not promoting myself. I'm promoting the American people.
Okay, that's a pretty good.
Did you not like that, Beats? Oh, I was gonna help John out there. But seriously, you guys, like these issues that we face, whether it's the police, whether it's looting, rioting, protesting, which, by the way, are all three separate issues. Whether it's any of the millions of things that we've been talking about on Breathe America lately, like, look, no matter what our issues are, the answers lie within the Constitution. And the answers ultimately lie with us, the people. And the sooner we agree that allowing ourselves to continue to be divided by these people, by these organizations, by these companies, because a lot of it, I mean, is being done to us by businesses that control our politicians because they buy them out through lobbying. So we're literally allowing businesses and companies to dictate our future, and that is not the American dream. What we see in America right now is not the American dream. This isn't the America our forefathers envisioned. This isn't the America that the Constitution, gives us. This is something different. This is something that we need to do something about. And the only way to do that is through coming together as we the people. I've said it many times. Those are the most powerful words ever written down. We the people. And you know what? Like, I have been blessed in my life incredibly because I have amazing friends like the three guys you see here and several more that have taught me a ton. Not only do I learn from, but they also help me to understand other sides that I never would have gotten the opportunity to understand in my circle, right? So keep that in mind whenever you're doing anything, whenever you're working around people, talking with people, communicating on any level, you have the opportunity to learn and make friends. These are amazing people. And I've talked to so many people in Breathe America, and you guys are all amazing people. So I just want to say, like, thank you. Like, this is amazing. What's this one?
Beats asking you shall receive.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's
well, let's discuss it. Okay, let's talk about it.
Hold on. What's there to discuss?
There is that.
What do we talk about more than anything? Giving people a voice so that we can learn, right? How is this person that she's talking about any different than anybody else?
I don't want.
That's a long list.
I don't want to go in saying, "Hey, we're here to change you." I want to go in saying, like, I want to just hear what you got to say, man. Like, what do you do?
Let's say this. From a societal perspective, we cannot, in honest conscience, just give a microphone and a platform to every hateful ideology that comes out there. However, if we have someone that is wayward, someone who is confused or disillusioned, and you want to try to bring them some sense, that's something we can contemplate. But I'm telling you right now, regardless of what this platform is and regardless of how we feel on Breathe America, I'm not going to have some dude up here throwing Heil Hitlers. I'm not going to have some dude up here spitting hate at my friends and family and my fellow breathers. So do I believe everybody gets a voice? Sure. Do I believe everybody has a chance to get their teeth knocked down their throat for what they say? Also sure. So, like, for that, I understand that we need to reach hearts and minds, but to a certain extent,
I mean, that's what the vetting process is for, really, though.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's
Vetting
not the right way, you know what I mean? But I want to give it a shot because the whole idea behind Breathe America is giving everybody a voice, you know what I mean? And if we're going to reflect on what we believe in, we need to reflect on what everybody believes in. You know what I mean? That's, for me, that's what the show's about, bro. You know, I'm not trying to tell you, John. You know what I mean? I love you, brother. I love you. Like you were born.
You know, I grew up right next to the Aryan Nation compound in Coeur Lane. Like, yeah, I have been neck deep in outspoken neo-Nazis and Aryan nations. That's why I'm saying this hesitancy. It's not necessarily no. And of course, we'll discuss it. But I've heard it. I've seen it firsthand, face to face, and it's ugly.
Well,
John, I agree with you. There are limits to what we will allow on our shows for sure. But that doesn't mean I don't want to talk to this individual. So, Bree, I know you're watching. Set it up. Put him in touch with us. I
can't control what you do on Breathe America, man.
I know you can't. But I will.
This is my guest. He's coming. Election first.
Well, just remember, the black dude asked first. So are we going to just jump over him and give it to the white guy right off the bat? Like, what is this, white privilege?
We're talking white privilege now? If he's willing, I think we should have him on. If he's willing to follow a few simple rules that we're wanting to understand his perspective.
I think it would be good. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to sit here and just let him say whatever, especially if it doesn't make any flipping sense. You know what I mean? But I think everybody should have a voice.
Bree, don't add him to the group. Just send us his personal information, please, so we can reach out to him.
Yeah. Don't worry, Patrick will have his producer reach out to him.
Right.
Mike, what do you think of that? Like, you've been quiet this whole time. What do you think of bringing somebody like that on a show and having that conversation?
I mean, there's a good chance that it could be a productive conversation. There's a good chance that they don't want a productive conversation. It's all about speaking to this person to know.
It's a big step.
Well, we won't know until we try.
It is a big step, though. We got to admit, it is a huge, massive step for the entire platform, because that is a very, very racially charged group, being that it's the KKK. You know what I mean? But what makes you tick? You know what I mean? That, like, what makes me tick? I hate everybody. I don't care what color you are. If you're dumb, you're dumb. If you're an idiot, you're an idiot. It doesn't matter what color you are. And I believe an idiot, there's an idiot in every race. So
Hey, Bree, 100%. Bree says not live, pre-recorded. That is absolutely a show that we would do pre-recorded.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. That way we can make sure it didn't spiral out of control.
Which we do have the ability to do, but yeah, that would be absolutely be the way that we would handle that situation. And it would be I would hope that it goes really well. And ultimately, I like listening to other people's opinions, not for the purpose of changing them, but just for the purpose of trying to understand. Because once you understand them, then maybe the path forward becomes a little bit more clear. You know.
That's a good point. So we're actually running out of time here. We're about a minute over what I wanted to go. So I wanted to do a little bit of an experiment. Huh?
More time.
You want more time? Well, you better start talking about something relevant. Listen, I got a little experiment to follow here. And I want to talk about I want to bring out some questions to you guys. And I want you guys just to raise your hand if you feel that this is something that needs to be addressed, right? I'm going to give you an example of something that revolves around legal reform. And I want you to raise your hand if you believe that it should be addressed and or assessed. Okay. So first things first, racial profiling. Okay. No-knock warrants.
Oh.
Gun seizures. The legality of determining whether open carry or concealed weapon is unconstitutional and passing laws against it.
That was a big
one.
one.
I phrased that weird. Let's just say this.
Small mind.
Federal guidelines on whether or not open carry can be considered a legal constitutional right.
Can I just say it's already been done?
Then explain to me. Okay. It
open
has
carry
been done.
Is constitutionally legal. It's been determined by the Supreme Court.
And is it now available in every single state?
I don't know what states decisions were. I don't know what every state's decision on it is. I know in Idaho it is.
Okay, so in Idaho, you're happy with the fact that our state is back to open carry. Thank you.
I got constitutional carry, actually. It's a little different.
Constitutional
carry. You can
carry.
open carry and you can conceal carry here without a license.
Correct, because we have the constitutional carry law.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it should be illegal to open carry?
No.
Raise your fucking hand. Do you think open carry should be legal?
I saw that.
All right. We're demonetized immediately on this show. Reflection's never going to make any money, but we knew that already. So does anybody think that vehicle checkpoints should be reassessed?
Like abolished, reassessed? Gone. Out of there.
At least reconsidered.
At least reconsidered, right? So all of these tie into police and legal reform. All of these tie into writing protective legislation for the U.S. citizenry against the way they are policed and the way their laws are enforced against us. So pretty much everybody here on the screen is up for legal reform, right? I think a lot of Americans are. I think a lot of Americans argue over what kind of legal reform they want. I think conservatives typically want federal law reform, right? That's the ones that we're most worried about. That's the ones we feel that are the most overreaching typically. You see in the liberal and the left mindset, and what I mean by this is those who tend to vote Democrat, whether or not they feel they have a gun to their head while they do it or not, they tend to want municipal reform. They want to have city reform, state reform. They want to have it on this basis. And I think it needs to be recognized that across the board, police probably want some legal reform. They probably want some more resources. Mimi just brought up, I think it was Mimi, was talking about how under-resourced her police in her city actually are. and how they're already struggling for these types of things. You know, they can't get the job done even with all the stuff going on prior to that. So when we look at these situations, is there any reason that any three of you think that a mutual sit down with law enforcement and the people that they regulate over to discuss some sort of legal or police reform would not be beneficial? Do you think do you think it'd be beneficial to have this discussion? And I don't leave law enforcement out of it. They need to be an integral part.
I personally think that in this whole police reform discussion, we need to talk about untying their hands on methods that aren't fucking shooting people.
Go ahead. Let me know when you're done. So I don't want to walk over you.
I got a funny story for you. Last year, a friend of mine was on a lot of drugs and suicidal because he was going through cancer and it wasn't looking good, and he decided to give up, and he was in a very, very bad place. It got to the point where I had to flush 2 bottles of pills on him and basically call the police on him for his mental well-being, for his physical well-being, for the sake of his life. Now, I made it very clear to the cops that I was calling them because he's in mental distress, not because he's a danger to me. They basically told me that they'd take him to the hospital and get him a mental eval. You know what happened? They took him to the hospital and held him there for 2 hours while he refused to give a drug test, and that's all they wanted from him, so that they could press charges. So he refused a drug test for long enough, and then he got to sign himself out of the hospital, and he was back on my porch in like 3 hours. That's a failure. That is a failure by good cops, because they can't do anything but violence. And whether that's their training, whether that's having their hands bound by laws, regardless of what it is, that needs to be part of the discussion too.
There's piggybacking off of what you said, Mike. There is something else I think that needs to be a part of the discussion too, because I feel like it contributes to bad things that happen.
Beats, do you remember that story I sent you? I think it was yesterday, about the 13-year-old autistic kid.
Yeah. I'm getting tagged. Give me a second. I was just trying to follow Patrick's hands. He kind of threw me off for a second. He's like,
I was trying to get what John was showing me. Did you try it yet?
Not yet.
Is it the cotton candy one?
No.
Rose. I like to bang. I don't know about you people, but it's a great way to lose weight.
It's also a great way to get demonetized.
Energy drink.
We need to be real that we're never going to make a dime off of this.
I know.
Mike, I want to jump in here real quick, and I agree with you. I think that was an absolute failure.
You're going to cut off the co-host? You're going to cut off the co-host?
Yeah.
I thought he was done because he was over there laughing like he normally does.
Oh, you shut your mouth. What needs to be talked about as well that contributes to the issue is qualified immunity. That's a major problem. I feel like a lot of cops, a lot of police officers know that they have qualified immunity and may or may not give them an itchy trigger.
Well, here's my problem: is qualified immunity doesn't actually protect them in their job, right? Qualified immunity protects the criminal element that are corrupting their job field. Qualified immunity is basically saying, well, yeah, we decided it's wrong to shoot people in the back while they're running away unarmed, but this guy shot him in the back of the head, you shot him in the back of the neck, that's a different thing. So you get off too. No. Like, you broke the law, you screwed up. That's been determined. Just because you screwed up in a way that somebody else hasn't done before in this exact jurisdiction or setting a precedent for this exact scenario. No. If you shot somebody wrongfully, if they were unarmed, if the situation adds up to be that you were incorrect in doing so, face the consequences. I don't care what job you work. Doctors lose their licenses for screwing up. Plenty of professionals in our world can't just, oh yeah, I broke all the rules, but free pass, right? No. That doesn't happen too many places.
No, you're right. Patrick, what were you gonna say, brother?
I was just going to say, as far as what happened to your friend, that is a failure. Police officers, I grew up in a time where we heard the term "serve and protect" a lot. Now you don't even see it on the cars anymore, and I think that's part of the issue that we have, is that we're away from that. But what you just brought up, about police officers that break the law, that or that do things outside of their or outside of their department's policy and things like that. Like, if it's determined that they broke the law, then it absolutely should be. They absolutely should be held accountable to the same standard as a citizen at that point, as far as I'm concerned. And I think in order to make that process easier,
Here's the problem with that, is half the time they hide the evidence because it's an old boys club and they're all buddies. Like, look at cases like, I don't know if you know who Officer Boynton was, but he is a man that I'm going to use words like allegedly and supposedly and crap like that because legal BS. But this man, in my opinion, shot his wife in the head, and there was evidence, on body camera that he was lying to his fellow officers. And the phone that he called them from, saying he was staying outside until they arrived, just so happened to be on body cam in the house. But no, he stayed outside the whole time. Guess who didn't get charged with that? You know what's funny? His wife lived. And you know what happened? It got deemed a suicide attempt, and she got basically all of her rights taken away for getting shot in the head by her husband.
I think one of the things that we could do about that situation and other situations like that is look at who actually polices the police. When internal affairs officers are officers, and maybe we need outside people to actually police.
Review boards are a thing. Do you know that there's a community review board in New York City? Do you know that they have absolutely no teeth whatsoever, because the commissioner can just be like, oh, nice recommendation, that goes in the garbage?
Right. Well, that's just a community review board. I'm saying do away with the internal affair altogether and make that community review board, or hire internal affairs people from outside the police department in order to police the police. That way they're not actually tied to the good old boys club. And I think, this idea of a good old boys club, I think there's some merit to it, but at the same time, I don't know. I think the vast majority of police officers are good. And I think that,
let me ask you this, this good old boy club that we're talking about, this is the fraternity mindset that we're saying. Let me ask you this. How come every time since 1960 that we've asked for legal reform, every cop is thrown down his badge in disgust and threatened to walk? That's the good old boy club. Why? Because anytime we try to eliminate the small percentage of bad cops, all of the good cops turn against us. Why? Because to them, it's a band of brothers.
Let's talk about this. That's not the only reason. Let's talk about all the good cops that try to stop bad cops and get punished worse than the bad cops.
Yeah, type in police whistleblower one of these days and look at how many people get capped, ostracized, pulled out, fired, and ultimately sometimes killed because they speak out against their fellow brethren. We're not saying the good old boy club is full of bad people. What we're saying is they stick together even when we're not coming after the good ones. And I understand that there's a band of brotherhood, loyalty, but to a certain extent.
So there's an officer from a city very close to me, a city that I lived in for years. Her name is Carriel Horn. Former officer Carriel Horn. Because she stopped another officer from choking a man to death while he was already in custody. And she got punched in the face for it and got charged with obstruction of justice, had her badge removed, lost her job, lost her pension, all those things. Meanwhile, the guy that was literally trying to kill the suspect that she stopped, nothing happened to him. Not until years later when he got more shit on him and he ended up going to prison for that. But guess what? He still has his pension. Fun, right?
What if that's not the fraternal brotherhood though? What if that is more of a situation of
it's a precedent?
Say man versus
good cops are scared to speak out. I know a good cop who went in best of intentions, wanted to help people, all that type of stuff, spoke out when he felt his brothers were in the wrong. You know what? You know what happened? I can't say who, but he lost promotions over it, lost opportunities over it. Basically learned he wasn't going to get anywhere being the good guy. So he shut his mouth.
So how do you stop?
That's what all of them do.
How do you stop something that's been ingrained and pretty much institutionalized in that side of things? How is that even possible? It's been there for so long. How do you even begin to
change the way that it's dealt with that reinforces those patterns of behavior? Change the fact that these whistleblowers are getting charged with obstruction of justice and getting their pensions taken away. Any of these officers that have gotten their pensions taken away for stopping another officer from doing illegal activity, give them their pension back. Those are the cops that we need to support. Those are the blue that we need to back.
Do you think we should reward them then to make it more susceptible for people to want to be a whistleblower?
No, I think if they're honest, if they are the type of people that we need in the police force, good, honest people that want to help, if we don't have barriers in the way and consequences in the way of them doing what's right, they will do what's right.
Hold on a second, guys. I want to hear what Patrick has to say about this because we've jumped 3 rails in like 30 seconds. So
welcome to the club, Pat. Now you know how it feels.
Hey, that's okay.
He's a big talker in the chats. He's a big talker in the chats.
Turns out I'm good listening too. I like hearing these things. I think to answer one of your questions, Beats, one of the best ways for us to deal with this is to get rid of police officers policing police officers. Internal affairs needs to have the ability to not be associated with the police, period. I think that is a universal rule that needs to be applied across this country. That way, if a police officer comes forward to internal affairs about something, they don't get outed. That would offer these people that we're calling whistleblowers a lot more protection. That would be a really great place to start. How do we change it? Well, like most things in life, it's not going to happen quick. It's going to take time. I think that's a really great first step. It's interesting though, like the stories that Mike's telling and like I was watching the comments go by as I was listening, and like I know Mimi pretty well. She's a huge supporter and she's in complete or huge supporter of the blue.
Love you.
And
great.
And yet she agrees with all of this, which I was surprised by, Mimi. I got to say, I didn't expect that to come. because a lot of the times when we have conversations like this, we see this blanket support on the conservative side of things for police. But what people tend to forget is these issues are far more complicated than we like to believe, right? There's more to it than just supporting police and not supporting police.
Late night coffee, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
But
Well, it makes us feel good that you're staying up for us. Thank you.
Yeah, it really does, Lindsay. Thank you. But because of how complicated these issues are, and because there's all these angles here that we all know about, like Mike just gave a couple of examples. I know of a few examples. I know John and Beats probably know of a few examples as well. And I'm pretty sure most of you guys watching probably know of a few examples, right? So what's interesting is we all know these things happen. And I'm a huge supporter of the police. I'm just not a very big supporter of bad police. And it's one of those jobs, it's like we can't have bad police officers, especially the kind that make these kind of critical mistakes that fly off the handle. Look, I encourage people every day to respond versus react. If we have police officers reacting emotionally based on the situations they're put in, that creates a very dangerous situation for who? For us, the civilians.
Well, for the police officer too.
I think
and for other police officers, exactly.
I think the idea of reacting before being rational is a bad situation for anybody being a human being. Whether you're a police officer, a doctor, a fry flipper. I just said fry flipper on a live show.
Burger flipper.
Burger flipper. God, that was
classist pigs.
It doesn't matter who you are. You have to have that aspect in life to not
to progress.
Exactly. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, John. You help me so much when it comes to that.
No, I think.
What'd you see?
Just a comment I was reading. I just think that overall, at the end of the day, it's another really, really great example of where we can do better, period. We can do better.
That's true story. And that's why I said when Mike said, is it a brotherhood thing or is it a sexist thing when it came to the female? Because I don't even think it was a brotherhood thing with the female, because it's really hard for a female to even be accepted in that line of work, period. And like I always tell, man, I'd rather get pulled over by the most racist cop before I get pulled over by a female blonde cop, because it's going to be a whole lot worse with the female blonde cop than the racist cop. No!
Fly flipper it is.
No.
Fly flipper.
On Kimberly, to your comment, it's another place where we have to do better, you guys. I mean, and I know it's frustrating when you start to take a step back and really open your eyes and really look at where we're at as a nation. But there's a lot of things where we have to do better, and policing is one of the areas we have to do better. How we deal with sexual harassment and things like that, we have to do better. That is unacceptable. But there's a lot of areas where we have to do better. But don't get discouraged.
How much of this civil unrest, how much of the American mindset right now is because we've ignored these problems for so long? Like when we're talking about sexual harassment, look at the Me Too movement. This is what happens when you suppress it for so long and then it goes completely out of control and destroys like half the world in its wrath. You know, the BLM movement, like I said, we've been asking for this kind of police reform since the 70s. And now what's happening? You know, when you ignore the American people and we have the ability to speak out against that and to bring that to your attention, yeah, we're kind of like really angsty teenagers with hormonal rages. you should attend to us quickly. You should make sure that you meet our concerns, because literally our forefathers told us to shoot you if you don't. So when we don't get this, when we get this stagnancy in government, when we get this stagnancy in all these movements, and we're saying, we got to have this discussion. We got to have this discussion. Okay. At a certain point, the discussion part's over and it's time for action, right? And what happens when we don't see that action? We see some action, and it's almost always in the worst places. You know, I'd love to see the people that are rioting right now. I'd love to see them have all of their passion and all of their anger and all of their wrath wrapped up in creating actual legislative change or doing things, quote unquote, the right way. But
here's what I'd love to see.
The people that are doing it the right way are also getting ignored, or just outright getting called anti-Americans, or getting told that they're snowflakes, that they're SJWs, and they need to shut the hell up. So for me, when I see this stuff, it's ignoring, and then it's the outbreak. Sorry, Mike.
I'd like to see all the Back of the Blue people go out there for reforming the police, to put an end to this and to quit putting our police in the line of fire between the people and the politicians.
Damn right. Let's pass some legislation that benefit them.
Yeah, I think we're at a point now, John, where you bring up history, and I am, painfully reminded of Martin Luther King's the end of one of his speeches where he left a warning, that this isn't going to go away, right? And here we are, we're seeing it, and everybody likes to hear the "I have a dream" part of that speech, but did you ever listen? Did you ever read the end of it? And if you haven't, go read it. Read what he said. This man is revered for his perception and his willingness to take a beating literally and do nothing in order to make change. And he gave a warning in that speech at the end, and it's something that we all should read.
That warning was, this is the last time you're going to whoop my ass, and we're going to allow us to talk peace. Next time you whoop my ass, we ain't going to be talking peace. And I apologize for the cultural appropriation I just did there by making my voice a little street. But
you didn't do well at it. I just want you to know that.
We're in depth today, John.
Beats, will you paraphrase that in street for me?
We're not on a rated R platform.
Oh, gotcha. Perfect. And that makes sense. That makes sense.
I want to say something about the end of that speech that kind of popped in my mind when you started talking about that. We all hear "I have a dream." Aren't we all also just taught "I have a dream"? Because I can't remember in any classroom, in any situation where it was more than anything than "I have a dream," which ties into a lot of other different things. Like, look at our education system now. What shouldn't we reform that? Because there's a lot of, since I've gone on this Breathe America venture, I have learned so much stuff that I had no idea was in existence. And that's when I learned about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and how they're the same homies. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that I don't know because I wasn't taught that information as growing up. I wasn't taught in middle school or high school or anything like that. It's always been "I have a dream." Martin Luther King rolls around in February, Black History Month. We get a whole month. Woo. You know what I'm saying? Like, why aren't we being taught these things? Nobody was buying it at all, bro.
I'm a hillbilly. What can I do? All right, I try.
We're gonna be in the streets, okay? And and I'm from the streets, gangster.
Nobody's buying your white hillbilly over there either, Beats. I just want you to know I can still hear the street behind the southern or the northern or whatever that was.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my God. All right, we have reached the limit. We need to wrap this thing up. Patrick, give us your last thoughts, brother.
My dog's over there laying down, dreaming right now, chasing something, and it's quite hilarious. I'm trying not to get overly distracted by it because he's whimpering. It's like maybe something's chasing him this time. I don't know. He's freaking out over there. But honestly, guys, this was a lot of fun. John, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I think this is one of those really great conversations that needs to happen more. And I want to thank, Beats as well for not only having me on, but, like these things matter. And Mike, of course, brother, you always bring a side of an argument that most of us have never even thought about. And it's one of the reasons I truly love you, bro. Like it's amazing the way you see things and the way you break things down. To all of you guys that stayed up with us late and watched, you guys know I love you. I will see you guys in the morning. But as far as this subject goes, the biggest point I want to make, and the thing that I think is most important, is I will always stand side by side with good police officers, and they have my absolute support. And I don't ever want to be in a position where we have this conversation and people think that I'm somehow classifying all police one way or another. I just think that this is a conversation we have to have. Look, we have to be willing to get rid of bad police officers in order to protect the good ones and keep them safe and keep them going home every night. And ultimately, that should be everybody's goal, right? So I guess I'll wrap it up with that. And obviously, I love all you guys. Have an amazing night.
Mike, got anything you'd like to say for your last roundup?
Yeah. Basically, I know how a lot of people in our group feel. I know we have a lot of police supporters. I want to make it very clear to all of you that are listening. People that are for defunding or reform are not anti-cop. There are some of them, like there are some of things in every group, but that is not what it's about. And if you ever want to talk about it or ask me questions, reach out.
Pretty powerful, man. Mike is a good resource on a lot of things because, like me, he tries to listen to a lot of stuff that most people don't really want to look at the base philosophy or the base underlying principles. He's not somebody who takes things at face value. So if you're ever confused, and he's not a leftist or a rightist. That's why I call him progressive center or forward center, because I still haven't figured you out, Mike. When we first met you, I thought you were a liberal, and then you come out with some strong conservative right hooks, and then you come up with some moderate stuff. And then I'm like, when you take the overall picture, you're American. That's the only way I can explain it. Mike, you're a little bit of everything. And just so you know, and you guys breathers watching this and people that watch the reflection, I just want you guys to know that educating yourself in a real way about those you disagree with is the greatest way to come to compromise. I've had a lot of the breathers say, oh, John can argue anyone's side and everything else. And the reason why is because, if I disagree with you, we're going to explore all the aspects, because one, I don't like being wrong. That's the worst feeling in the world. And two, because I have a better capability of finding common ground, or even, let's just say, swaying you to my point, if I know what your point really is. If I know where your real information is coming from, what your real agenda is, what your real direction is, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's a lot of times where we come in completely opposite and we end up on the same path. And that's really what Reflections as a show is kind of about, is the idea that you can come from complete opposite directions and you meet in the middle, you form a cohesive shape, you form a cohesive unit together. Mike, Patrick, I am stoked to have you guys on. This was awesome. Thank you for helping me get this rolling, Chief. I really appreciate it, Patrick. You always believed in me, and I really appreciate that you gave me this boost, man. Go out and try to spread a little love. I love you guys. So we're gonna pop you guys off. Me and Beats are gonna do our little roundup on the end, and then we're gonna head off and let everybody go to sleep.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having us.
You guys, thanks for the views, because I know you pumped it.
Yeah, no kidding. Expect you to promote this heavily right alongside your show.
Got it. Tomorrow night, live with Breathe America. Very special episode. It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely.
You guys are going to want to tune in and watch it. If you haven't seen it,
Absolutely.
tomorrow's going to be hot.
It'll be hot. And that's
Bye,
no
guys.
joke. All right, guys. I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, Beats. That was a pretty good show. We only screamed at each other for half the time.
Bro, there was some moments where Mike and Pat saved you, bro. Come on. Good show. Really, really, really happy with the outcome of having Pat and Mike on. There was some really good insight was talked about, and there's still a lot of things that still need to be talked about. One of them majorly being, for me, that I think needs to be talked about is qualified immunity. That's a big problem. You know, I think that it should be totally changed in how people look at it and how it's done. Did I lose you there, John? John, you are frozen. Oh, there you go. You're back. That was scary. I thought I was on the show by myself. It's like, what am I gonna do? You still there, John? John. John. Oh, John's got.
What's up?
Oh,
What's up?
wait. He's not there.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, my God.
Sorry about that. There was
My
a major glitch there. Are you pushing stuff? Are you pushing stuff back
I
there?
can't do this by myself. I need some input from a qualified white person. I was freaking out. Oh my God. I don't even know
Oh
what
my God.
happened.
So qualified immunity, we're going to be launching into that next. We're going to talk about
Yeah.
what the implications of that is, and what its definitions are and how that works. We'll
Well,
have
we're
some
not-
more guests on.
Launching right into it. It's a part of a series.
Yeah.
It's a part of
So
the
we're-
systemic racism series. We're
We're dealing with we're dealing with a whole new series. It'll be on systemic racism. We're kind of in the part of it. We're starting to launch into it, but we've been handling, the exterior issues first, and then we're going to work into it. We're going to analyze it. We actually have two different views on what systemic racism actually entails and like how it's perpetuated and everything else. We both agree that there's something that is systemic racism, but we have very different ideas. So if you want to see me and Beats just, hollering at each other and spit flying and stuff, that's going to be a good one for you guys. And we're going to be exploring it over 5 or 6 episodes. So we're going to wrap up here. Beats, sing a song.
The only thing that comes to mind right now is not. I got to work on my PG-13. Like,
Colt 45 and 2 zigzags. Baby, that's all we need. We
now
can go
you're
to the park after dark.
profiling
Oh,
and you're
all we need.
appropriating. I need you to stop now, John.
That's not appropriating.
Yeah,
Afro Man is from Colorado.
Okay, definitely white then. I don't care what color he is. No, I'm playing, viewers. I'm joking. You guys have to know that I'm a funny man and everything's funny to me. And I find the humor in everything, whether it be bad or good. So just work with me.
Well, we're going to have to leave off on that note. Thank you very much, Beats, for your eloquently put final thoughts. As always, you are a pleasure, friend.
Jerry's
We love you.
growing up.
From the Jerry Springer era. We love you. We are out for the night. We won't be bothering you again until next week, same time. We might go a little earlier since this ran late.
Yeah, thanks for everybody.
Yeah, and thank you every single one of you guys that tuned into this. This is an experiment, and thank you for being a part of it. I really appreciate it. We're going to go out. Good night, guys.
Mwah, mooches.
I'm going to make you hold